of River State, and also the suspended Speaker of the River State House of Assembly, Martin Samewele, and some other members of the State Assembly. Not just, we didn't just hear that, we saw pictures to go along with that there was actually a meeting. And I'm looking at this, it seems like maybe it looks like the suspension might be cut short. A few days ago, the Senate passed the 1.48 trillion River State budget presented by Administrator Ibas. And now days later, we're having a meeting between the governor, Wike, who is at the center of this with the governor, and also the lawmakers.
So I think you were about to say it looks like a convenient timing after the budget had been passed, and then
I don't know.
No, you can't come out.
Now they are reconciling.
I'm just saying the budget was a major issue.
Yeah,
before.
Has
always been the issue. You know, they told him after the lawmakers returned, after the Supreme Court ruling, they returned. They told him to come back to defend the budget and pass the budget again and all of that.
Yeah.
There was a back and forth on that. Right now, the budget has now been passed.
And it just happens that
there's a reconciliation, and maybe the suspension might be cut short. I don't know. I don't have the ears of the president. So.
Well, it looks like a divine arrangement, and
divine arrangement.
because this is how Nigerian politics happen. The more you look, the less you see. So most of the time, we just say, okay, it's divine. Let's move on from it. But on one hand, if this is a precursor to a reconciliation, it is good for the state, because even with the appointment of REC and everything, we started seeing some issues with Rivers people saying this is not what we voted for, this isn't. So from that regard, it looks good for them to reconcile and for the people to get their lawfully elected government back into power. But on the other hand, some other people will say this is negative peace. Yes, we saw Fubara smiling, we saw the State House of Assembly members also in good spirits. But the fact is, I can't shake off the feeling that it feels like somebody has been browbeaten into submission, and that he has either take it or leave it. And of course, there's almost 2 more years left. What would he do actually, except he wants to resign, and I don't think he wants to do that. So it feels like one party has had the upper hand, and we don't know what that looks like for governance in Rivers State going forward, having looked at the fact that they had issues with appointments, budgeting, basically who spends the money and how it's spent. So probably we're going to see Rivers Commonwealth held hostage, or maybe Fred Moore, who knows, but it doesn't feel like this is in the best interest of the people in the long run. Yes, they will get their duly elected representative, but on the other hand, how will the governor, if the state of emergency is called off, because I think the constitution says after 6 months it has to be reviewed. So if it's called off before then, what kind of relationship are we going to expect to see between Fubara and his lawmakers? Also bear in mind, a lot of commissioners had also resigned, so we're also going to see reappointments and appointments. So, and this will also bring up some other sort of tension. So was the root cause of the issue addressed? Did the president call Wike to order? Because this is the conversation a lot of people are having. You can't punish just one child that's misbehaving and leave the other person. Wike feels like a lord to himself. Yes, he might be rightfully aggrieved because he's been funding the party, funded Fubara into governance. But the fact is, once the business of governance takes course, you have to understand that things have changed, and maybe play second fiddle. For crying out loud, you are also busy in Abuja. So focus on one thing. The political structure of Rivers State is not just for one person. It's like they say, barrack, soldier come, soldier go. So yes, I understand that you want to remain relevant, but you can still do that without creating so much chaos in the state.
More like dipping your hands in a cookie jar.
Exactly, whatever that is, because we don't have an evidence to say that is what he's doing. But Fubara needs to also tread.
The cookie jar in my case here means the business of the state.
Yes.
Not the other cookie jar.
So, but Fubara needs to also tread carefully. I don't think he has too many friends at this point. So he just needs to figure out how he's going to see out the rest of his term, when this is lifted, and hope for the best in 2027 if he's given a ticket.
I mean, I'm just going to say this has in some way altered his trajectory as the governor of that state, because you just mentioned that it's 2 years left. How do you think the people, I mean, his faithfuls in that state will react to this?
This is a constant in Rivers State. You've had Celestine Omeh here, who had, I think, barely 1 year or 6 months as governor in the state. The governorship seat has not been a very quiet one in Rivers State.
Yeah.
You know, except maybe
That
the
is
exception of Wike, Rotimi, and the first Peter Odili.
Yeah.
But in between then, you'd had issues even in the House of Assembly with successive ministers. But I think this would mature him as a statesman, as a politician also. You know, because I think he came in as a civil servant, became a political appointee, so he has not really politicked. So for what it is, what he's going to learn. He's going to learn that sometimes you don't come out open into the open air and say certain things. You move quietly, you make certain strategic moves, build alliance before you take certain decisions and moves. And also, you also don't allow people feed you when you're not ready for the insults. You know, you can't accept a gift, a Greek gift from, so it's like a Trojan horse. You take it and you expect, when you bring wood with ant infested wood into your house, you don't complain when ants are in your house. So he accepted the ticket gotten for him, worked for by Wike and his, resources. So he needs to sit down with the consequences. Is this good for our democracy? No. But that is the politics we are playing. So I think he has matured as a person, but will he learn the lesson? Will we see any change? But I don't think he's setting for 2027.
I was going to just ask, that's the question I was going to ask now. 2027, the re-election, is that possible for him?
He could go to another party and pick the ticket, but in PDP and APC, because we don't know which party Wike belongs to right now. In PDP and APC, he is not sure to come back. Now, it is also a problem for Wike because he installed Fubara as a loyalist, somebody who's going to take instruction. So he will also have trust issues. Whoever is trying to bring on board is going to be worried that this person might bite his hands also the same way Fubara did. So it's not like it's an easy sailing for Wike either. He's going to be doing a whole lot of consultation to say who is the next person we are bringing or who would actually have our interests at heart. So it is not a straightforward route for either of them. Or they might come to a truth and say, okay, you know what, you've beaten me, I've beaten you, we know where we stand, let's do this again. But a second term Fubara I think would be much more dangerous than the first term Fubara.
Also, in all of this, we saw the pictures, we saw all that. For me, what has been missing is a statement from the State House. The president was going to have a meeting with, one of the ministers, minister of the FCT, who is also a strong player in River State. And part of this issue, the governor, the suspended governor, and the lawmakers, we expect them to tell us this is what happened. This is that, but no statement. Nobody's saying anything.
In PR and communication, this is a photo op that speaks more than a statement. Because if I put a mic in front of either Fubara or Wike, they might say something that will spoil everything. So it's controlled communication. So you would let everybody sees we're smiling, everybody sees we are good. Let everybody keep quiet. Let's maintain the peace, because a careless statement here might set back all the efforts that they've put into this.
So it's a case of, what are the intentions of the president following from this? What is the next move as regards River State on the part of the president?
What I'm trying to say is they purposely put this open to speculation. This is just creating feelers. How do the people feel? Let's start getting them ready. A basic psych ops. That's how they call it, right?
Yeah.
So people start thinking, okay, this is moving towards this direction. Let their supporters start getting used to the fact that we are going to be coming back together. Because in politics, you diverge, you converge.
Yeah.
So once they do that, that's why I said there's a reason they're not putting out a statement yet. The idea is to prep people's mind to say, okay, this might happen, and when it does happen, let's manage it carefully, because we all know what's transpired when we're all careless with our utterances.
Okay, all right. We'll see what happens following that. Whether it looks like a situation where Fubara and the lawmakers will be called back, to their elected roles sooner than a 6-month suspension that they were given. Let's take a look quickly, briefly at some other issues here facing the nation. The Senate yesterday did say that they will be holding a zonal summits across the country, security summits to help increase the situation, improve the security situation in the country. And I saw this, and I'm asking, how would this improve the security lapses this country is experiencing?
I tried to read up on this story. I think the Senate needs something to do. In Nigeria, you have to justify your pay sometimes, and usually when there's a conflict, there's a disaster, a problem, a committee is set up. We don't really know the committee's purpose, but a committee eventually gets set up, and at the end of the day, the agencies and the individuals saddled with those responsibilities play second fiddle to a committee who gets to be paid certain allowance. But here's my take is, whatever occasion we have for dialogue, it is good we do that. Now, I also, if it's going to be holistic and if it's going to be transparent, it's a good way to feel the pulse of the people, because you don't want to solve a problem without local content and local involvement, because the color of crisis in the southeast is different from the color in the north. The color is different from the one in the south. Now, although one might argue that the Senate and House of Reps is made up of representatives of all these communities, and logistically this is going to look like it's going to be difficult to accomplish. What time frames are we looking at? How are we holding these sittings, and a lot of people would have a lot of things to say. How do you harmonize all the voices? But yes, it's a good point to start. But what is the end goal? How do we implement because like I said the last time I was here, a lot of things will boil down to saddling the security agencies with the necessary funding and equipment to do their job. Also empowering people at the grassroots level, because if I say idleness is the devil's workshop, a lot of these conflicts are from people who do not have jobs or who are now being paid by politicians themselves. Yeah. So how do you also deal with the enemy in-house when you know it's people like some people in the political space that are funding this crisis?
All right, thank you very much. That's the first half of City Press so far, brought to you by Amstel. Moving on now to the second half here of City Press, brought to you by Maltina.
What does the new Amstel Malta Sleek can look like? Slick, tall, draped in red and gold. Or what does it sound like? And the taste? Rich and oh so satisfying.
Amstel Malta, made with premium quality ingredients, now in a sleek can.
Still listening? Go get yours. It's now available.
With Amstel Malta, there is always more. Be your best. City 1051.
True friendship, it lasts forever. True friendship, a gift we share together. No matter where you are, we're there together. Sharing moments, happiness is when we are together.
Maltina, share happiness. City 1051.
746 City 1051. We run the city. Breakfast in the city here. And right now we are on to City Press, the second half of City Press, brought to you by Maltina. I am on the mayor here with an in-house analyst, Joshua Moses, and
My name is Imi.
all right, so let's just get a touch on one more story before we take reactions from people, and it has to do with the flood situation here. The federal government seems to be coming with more policies to help people.
Yes, so the FG launches a flood insurance policy to support individuals, businesses, and communities that are affected by floods. And the question that came to mind after reading the story is, do you think this is another bureaucratic stunt, or it's going to be a game changer in the country?
It could be not. Who knows? With the government, but I think it's a great initiative on paper. The insurance industry is one I think we don't take seriously in Nigeria, and sometimes it's with good cause, because if you've dealt with them too, they can also be a handful to deal with. But everybody that does anything that's risk related, in fact, existing alone is a risk. You need some form of insurance. So when you suffer some losses, because I say when, because you will suffer some losses, you need some fallback option to say, okay, how do I recoup some of this? But the question, the whole thing now is in the details of the devil is in the details, basically. What does it look like? Because the flooding issue in Nigeria is delicate, because something like we said one time, there are usually warnings, and before even the warnings, what are our city plans? You can't go to certain cities, you don't have an urban development plan. The urban renewal people will approve whatever they want to approve to anybody to go and build, block whatever waterway you want to block, erect what you want. Some people block gutters, and this is sometimes down to major areas that have been carved out for flood excavation and all that. So we have a deeper problem than this, because this looks like they said it's a progressive measure or proactive measure, but it looks like the more proactive measure is to ensure that we have adequate preparation against this, that we don't build along waterways, that certain things that